Welcome to Wine Country at Work. I'm Ralph Demetrius, your host. These are highlights from the episodes from 2016. We hope you enjoy them as much as we enjoyed creating them.
But there is no winery that defines this district better than Stag's Leap Wine Cellars.
Today we're dropping in on this iconic winery to take a look at their new visitor center. For a winery that started here in Napa in 1970, it's held on to its traditional values. But this is a major leap forward in the world of wine tourism.
With them. Let's remember why we came here. The beautiful new visitor center with its great wow factor. And we have to ask, why is the hospitality so good here? Because it is really excellent. Is it because the weather is beautiful and the people are feeling blessed to be in this gorgeous place? Or is it because the wines are that good and they get to taste them where they're made? In truth, in Napa, we're surprised when the hospitality isn't first rate. But with their new visitor space, Stag's Leap really kicked things up a notch.
I think one of the big factors is the new visitor center's expansive windows. They allow the visitor to taste the wine while looking out over the vineyards where many of the grapes are coming from. They're also looking up at the rock outcropping that gives this district its name. It's called the Stag's Leap.
It's a nice experience for the people working here, too. They enjoy sunlight and vistas all day long rather than being in a dark room all day, which is common in many tasting rooms. This is great for their mood and their health because this helps their bodies generate more vitamin D, which is so good for the mood and immunity, which is not a small thing when you're working with people all day.
Also, pouring wine within sight of the vines produces a wonderful sense of connectedness. As winemakers often say, the wine is made in the vineyards, and the quality of the land and the sunlight are essential parts of the wine.
The views outside also give the team a wonderful teaching tool as they describe the property, and this is a very interesting part of the Napa Valley. Those hillsides are made up of iron-rich volcanic rock that are very dynamic from the point of view of a grape. The iron gives the wine muscularity, and there's no wine more muscular than Cabernet. The rock provides a good drainage that Cabernet Sauvignon likes, and as the farmers say, the vines don't like wet feet.
The whole valley is cut by streams that create clay-rich alluvial soils that are great for Merlot. The Stag's Leap vineyards have both types of soil thanks to a stream that runs through the middle of the vineyards. So on this side is the heavier, richer soil that Merlot uses to produce those rounded fruit flavors.
So when you combine the two together, you get the depth and muscle of the Cabernet and the satisfying brightness of the Merlot. Of course, there are 3 other grapes that go into Bordeaux-style red blends: Cabernet Franc, Malbec, and Petite Verdot. That's why I call winemaking magic, because there's so much that goes into making a really good wine. It starts in the vineyard with the proper management of the wine, and it carries on through the winemaking and the blending. But there is that one point in time when the winemaker adds that little bit of elfin magic, and the wine becomes more than the sum of its parts.
What's the title of the calendar?
So it's called Napa Valley's Most Decadent Male Winemakers. We had to use the word decadent in it because it's a wine descriptor.
Yes.
So we thought it'd be very fitting to use in this calendar.
And it's interesting because you had to select because there's hundreds of winemakers here.
There is, yeah. It was a really tough selection. So what I did was I did a Facebook poll. And I asked some of my, I think I have almost 2,000 friends on Facebook, and I said, who would you vote for? I know who I kind of wanted to have in the calendar, but it was really up to them, and I tallied up the votes.
Oh.
And so a majority of the top picks got in the calendar.
That was very logical.
It was. It made sense because it was what the majority wanted and the public wanted.
Interesting, because they are a tight-knit community.
Yes,
I mean,
very much so.
Everyone knows everybody.
Very much so. Everyone helps each other out, so it was really nice to kind of have people refer people, even winemakers referred other winemakers as well. It's really nice to have that kind of, that unison that we represent here in the Valley.
People don't realize how much cooperation goes on. Someone will have, break a piece of equipment during crush and call a friend up and they'll run over with a piece of equipment to help them out.
Right. I find that to be so amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, you think of other industries and you think how cutthroat it is and how people really don't share and they're a little more competitive. And I think really in our wine industry, especially in the Valley, people are so forthcoming and giving and sharing, like, oh, I'll help you out. Let me stop what I'm doing and help you out. Or even drive you to where you need to be, and so it's amazing.
Well, it's that combination of, farm country, which has always been a cooperative venture, as the nature of farming, but it's also hospitality mixed together, and it adds that extra little zinger because people really are amazingly cooperative. And remember during the quake, how much people helped each other out without thinking twice about it.
Yeah, and it was amazing to see on each shoot that I did. Everybody stepped up. The winemaker said, let me help you move this gear. Let me, they're so in hospitality mode. And they would actually literally help me with props or come up with ideas and really drive the focus of a lot of the shoots. So it was really nice to see and nice to work with them.
Well, it's especially interesting because winemakers normally are not involved on the hospitality side so much. I mean, when they get up to the higher level, when they're the senior winemaker, then that's their main job is going out to dinner with people and selling wine. But these folks, these are younger men, and they're the ones they're up to here in juice.
Exactly.
And they think very much three-dimensionally because they're thinking with tanks and they're thinking about how it's going to develop over a period of time. It's very much what you have to do as a photographer.
It is, and it's interesting you say that because it is very dynamic in that way. You have to get creative with what you're doing and working with. Lighting's changing as a photographer. The props are changing. Things that you thought might work out no longer work out because of lighting or situation. And I think that's really true. With these winemakers, they got creative. I had one winemaker in particular who said, let's just lift some barrels up. So he's lifting barrels over his head and saying, will this work? And we're trying out that shot. And it didn't end up working for the shot, but it was great to kind of see, him being willing to kind of work and roll with things.
Yeah, because it's a very physical art, what they do.
It is.
It takes some muscles.
It is, and that is definitely visible in the calendar. You see muscles for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a bunch of good-looking guys. I noticed that. It's also interesting, too, the quality of the light. This is an area that's famous for the quality of light. How did you deal with that? Did you shoot early in the day, late in the day? Did you...
Right, it's one of my earliest photo shoots that we did. We got there at 4 a.m. and we started setting up at 5. It was the December shoot, so we kind of waited for the light to be perfect. And even in December, and I remember that specific moment when the sky actually turned bright pink, and we kind of transitioned into capturing that moment. It was unbelievable. So that was the earliest shoot. We did a really late shoot where the sun was setting. It was absolutely gorgeous, and you'll see that in, I believe it's Mr. February or March.
Oh.
The sun is setting, and the mustard fields are, in bloom.
Oh, yeah. Love them. So, George, thank you for taking the time to talk with me about this. And you've seen the transformation of this building, these champagne caves, from when it was unusable as a winemaking facility to now when it's once again a producing facility as well as a hospitality center. So tell me a little bit about that transformation.
Sure. Jean-Charles Boisset bought Buena Vista in May of 2011, and he was told because of the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake, this building had not been retrofit back in 1982 as the first building was, and so in 1989 the building damaged to the point it was closed to the public for 23 years. Jean-Charles Boisset told that even a moderate earthquake would bring the damaged building to the ground. He launched a 9-month earthquake retrofit program starting in January of 2012. It cost many millions of dollars. Scaffolding was placed around the entire building. Many of your listeners or viewers will remember the ivy that grew on the outside of the building, which was quite beautiful, but it was killing the building, so all the ivy removed, scaffolding built. 30 workmen spent many months chiseling out the old mortar and cement, putting new in, and then they removed the rotten roof completely, drilled down in the middle a 6-inch wide hole with a diamond drill from top to bottom, put steel rods into the hole, poured epoxy and cement in. It took 2 months to dry, eventually fusing the steel to the stone. The steel rods are every 4 feet around the entire building.
That was a very long drill.
38 feet from top to bottom. And so, done by September of 2012. And because of the retrofit, this building was not destroyed by the August of 2014 South Napa quake, although the seismic engineers told us if we had not done the retrofit, it would be lost to history, a pile of rubble.
Now, I know the offices for Buena Vista are on the floor that we're in. In fact, we're in the lounge off of this, and this is new to me. Last time I was here, this was all offices. What are you using this space for?
We use this for VIP guests, for filming television shows for local television stations. We have meetings here with our staff, lunches.
Nice.
It is very nice.
It's very comfortable.
Quite.
Yeah. Now, on the top story, you have the new museum.
Yes.
And that's quite a collection. I had seen it in process when it was much simpler, and there were some tools up on the walls. Now it's turned into quite an unusual museum.
Thank you.
And what was the thinking behind that? I mean, I know Jean-Charles is a great collector.
Well, 10 years ago, Jean-Charles' father, Jean-Claude Boisset, who is the leader of the Boisset Collection, a family-owned company with 17 wineries in France, 5 in America, Jean-Claude purchased a museum from an eccentric Frenchman named Philippe Berard, who had spent 30 years collecting vinicultural tools, arranging them in artistic patterns upon the walls of a space that's in Burgundy. It's called the Imaginarium. You can visit it to this day. There is a 20-minute presentation that uses the story of the tools to tell the larger story of the history of wine and how wine is made. And so 1/3 of that collection came here. We put it up on the top floor. We changed the video presentation to make it more Buena Vista, California wine-centric. There is a voiceover by a man who sounds remarkably like myself. And so there it is. It's a 19-minute presentation. Some of the tools move. There are lights on them. And it is really an interesting presentation that tells the story of wine through its tools.
Come on home, to Oakland. My light is on, my door's open. You can occupy my arms if you're lonesome, baby, if you're lonesome. Come on home to Oakland. To Oakland, my light is on, my door's open. You can occupy my arms if you're lonesome, baby, if you're lonesome. Come on home to Oakland, on home to Oakland, yeah. Come on home to Oakland. Come on home to Oakland.
I spilled. Thank you. Thank you. That's an original song, and it's for free online at stompinggroove.com, which is our website, and we've got flyers here as well.
At which point did you start becoming real interested in it? Because I know this is a personal interest of yours.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I think I've always been interested in it ever since I was little. I was fortunate to be living in the Bay Area and getting to go to San Francisco often, but also getting to go to New York and Chicago and different metropolitan areas where busking is a lot more prominent. And always just, that was what I wanted to see. You know, I wanted to see, what's that guy doing, you know, over there? Phenomenal skills, whether it was the dancing or musicians or
even somebody reciting spoken word, that kind of energy it takes to stop people in the street, to stop their everyday life where they're going, interrupt it in a way they want to be interrupted. I mean, that's a really unique gift to have, and it's not just a gift, but it's a cultivated skill. So I think I've always been interested in it. But I think really solidified it for me was I had the opportunity to go to Europe when I was in middle school. And I went to France and to Paris and Barcelona. And in Paris and Barcelona, they actually have designated areas for busking, for street performers, and not only the performative arts, but the visual arts as well. People are selling artworks and painting live and doing all sorts of things along the Seine and in Las Ramblas in Barcelona. And it's really a part of the culture of their downtown area. And you'll find it kind of spread throughout the cities, but phenomenal, tango artists with violinists and, traditional dances from all different areas. And like I said, live painting and these sort of things. And it's kind of what you expect when you go there. It's the flavor of the city brought to you out in the streets. And coming back to the United States, even at that age, I realized how little we have that activation of our city streets. You kind of expect to have to go indoors to see what a community is all about. But in Europe, a lot of these larger cities in Europe, and actually I found a lot of the smaller cities in Europe too, it's just a part of the culture where it's in everything. And that made me really appreciate the artistry and what it can bring to a community.
So Chris, what I really want to know is what your family's experience has been from being biodynamic farmers.
So for me, the cool thing is I can tell you the real life experience of being a conventional farmer and then the transition to biodynamics. Because we've been living in this farmhouse here for about 35 years. And when we first moved out here, it was 1980, Halloween of 1980, we came out here and we farmed conventional because we didn't really know any better. And we just kind of went out there and all our neighbors farmed a certain way and we kind of saw what they were doing, we kind of copied them. I kind of call it the spray and pray method, but if there was a problem in the vineyard, you talked to the Monsanto guy and he gave you a big bag of methyl ethyl bad stuff and you went out and nuked the vineyards. But see, prior to this, the property had been left vacant for 50 years, so it was a beautiful garden. It was in great shape because no one really had farmed it, so it was left to its own devices. It was very healthy. But then we got in there, we cleared the land, put up the fencing and started spraying and planting grapevines. And every year I watched that property slowly die and die and die. And then you fast forward 10 years and I remember walking through the vineyards and the grapes looked good, but there was no cover crop. It was dirt, and that dirt was either rock hard or it was pulverized talc. Every time it rained, there would be erosion issues. We had phylloxera, we had nematodes outbreaks, and worst of all, our wine quality wasn't getting any better. And for me, the big moment was I remember being in the vineyards, and the only sound I heard was wind. Oh. No bugs, no birds, nothing. And I realized that, man, this was a sad piece of property that 10 years prior was a healthy garden. So we knew we needed to switch. And that was about 1994. And we started to bring in biodynamics that we learned from the Ciego vineyard up in Mendocino and Alan York, God rest his soul. We brought in our practices, and it took us about 6 years to transition the property. In the first 3 years, it was very tough. We almost gave up. But then we saw how some of the European properties did it, and that gave us the kind of energy to pursue it to its end. And then in 2000, we started to see the fruition. We started to see this piece of property come back to life. And now we fast forward a couple more decades to 2016, and you walk out in that vineyard, and it's every bit as healthy as it was when we first moved here in 1980. The only difference is that it's a working farm, where before it was left fallow. Now it's a beautiful working farm that makes incredible wine and olive oil and figs and vegetables. All sorts of wonderful things are grown on this property now because of biodynamics.
Well, what's interesting for me is that when you look at biodynamics, it's as if you're having a conversation with the land. You're treating it as a living
That's
organism.
a wonderful, I love that, how you say that, a conversation land, because that is what you're having there. And with that, the land kind of, it speaks to you and it lets you know, because we actually, we had 65 acres of grapes back then when we were farming this property unbalanced. Now we have it down to 40. Those other acres, I referred to them, the entire piece of property is 85 acres. We have 40 acres under vine. Those 45 acres are now the supporting cast, if you will, that makes the 40 acres of vines, the lead actor, more believable. And so they bring back the life back into those acreage, whether it's riparian or pasture land or gardens, insectaries, orchards, groves, all this stuff brings this property back to life.
Whose idea was it to start the educational component?
That would have to be my brother Mike. He was very instrumental. He always believed in biodynamics. Back in the 70s, he had a book that he carried from home to home to home. Wherever he went, he always had this book. And it spoke to him, literally. And that's what gave him the idea to switch over to biodynamic farming. And when Alan York, who was very instrumental in helping us consult to become biodynamic, when he saw this property, he fell in love with it too, because when you look at this piece of property, it's not valley floor property. It doesn't run up against a bunch of other vineyards. It's kind of its own entity.
Microcosm.
Right, and we can farm this holistically very much in the sense that the entire piece of property is one entity.
So we have long been connected here before moving here, which we did in '99. We settled in Sonoma, and now sort of getting into this whole film festival world, which we'd had nothing to do with prior, filmmaking, film festivals. But we discovered, lo and behold, that sleepy little lovely Sonoma had a film festival, an annual festival, and we attended the 3rd and 4th years, and we realized that someone didn't know what they were doing because hardly anybody was attending. It was terrible. The filmmakers came to show their films, and no one would show up in the theaters. And I said, what's wrong? This is such a great place. It's why isn't this thing so super successful, right, with everything it's got going for it? So anyway, that group kind of tossed in the towel after 4 years, and Brenda, my other half, had volunteered to just take it over after offering to help with the marketing, and they said, no, it's yours. You just take it. And I ended up helping her. This was right before 9/11, so her new board voted to toss in the towel 2 days after 9/11, and she hadn't even done her first festival yet, but she'd been working for 4 months on a rebranding strategy and a whole new marketing campaign. So I jumped in to help her, and what was neat is we ran that festival for 7 years, and every year we ramped it up, you know, starting from nothing. Audience tripled and doubled and 50% growth. The audience was growing, but more importantly was that we were meeting a whole fresh batch of people from the film industry every year who were coming up because they wanted to have their films in the festival or come talk on a panel or whatever. They were falling in love with the wine country. They were loving the experience we were creating, the hospitality we were extending, right? They were appreciating our audiences. And we were meeting them, and we were all of a sudden, we were sort of becoming like film people. And, oh, that's that crazy couple that runs the Sonoma Valley Film Festival. And one of the people that we met and who was coming every year with a fresh film was actually someone who I'd gone to business school with and Brenda had gone to college with. So it wasn't really a new acquaintance, but we were reuniting ourselves in a new context with him bringing films to our festival every year. He is the person who Ross Schwartz, the writer of Bottle Shock, was bugging in LA to please make my movie. And he's like, and our friend Todd was like, I'm not touching this thing, but my crazy friends Mark and Brenda up in Sonoma, they'll make your movie for you. Oh. And we read the script. He sent us the script. He said, make this, you know, you've been doing this festival. You've been picking films. People are loving the films. You guys have talked about maybe trying to produce a movie. You should do this one. We read the script and we're like, oh my God. This is such a great story. And we didn't even know the story. We didn't know it, let alone all the people out there that don't know it. So we fell in love with it. We decided to do it. And of course, the first thing is we're not filmmakers. So we said, well, we need to find a director. Where are we going to find a director? We're like, oh, yeah, we run a film festival. We meet 100 new directors every year. So we hired a guy who had shown a beautiful film at our previous festival, and Randy Miller, and he made a beautiful movie. So that was really a lot of fun. And the experience of creating that film of taking it to Sundance for its world premiere, taking it around the world, led directly to us creating the Napa Valley Film Festival. Because we had people in Napa who'd been watching the success of the Sonoma Festival and wondering, why isn't there a Napa Valley Film Festival? Well, then they're saying, well, wait a second, not only don't we have a film festival, but you guys running the Sonoma Festival just made a movie about the Napa Valley wines beating the French, and you premiered it at Sundance. This is wrong. That should have had its world premiere at a Napa Valley Film Festival, and you guys better fix this problem. Wow. So we did.
Well, you have, as part of your community that you draw from, the world's top wine tourism professionals.
Yes, we do.
That's really extraordinary. And I have a bunch of friends in the business, concierges and such, who volunteer during the festival.
Yes, I do get some amazing volunteers from our community. We have a lot of giving people who really want to be a part of the community and want to watch the community grow. So a lot of my volunteers are professionals that work all up and down the valley, as well as retired people. And I do get some students who volunteer, which we love to have them because it gives them the opportunity to decide what they want to do for their lives. Again, it's a way to inspire.
Yeah, I've noticed that you get a whole gamut of ages.
Yes, I do. And I look for that because they all have different talents at different times of your life. We all have different skills and things to offer. And people who want to be involved in this community bring so much to the festival. And a lot of them do it because they love film. A lot of them do it because they love being part of something big, being part of the community, getting involved and helping out a nonprofit organization that inspires the youth to express their emotions through film and art. It's a big deal for us. And that is the heart of our festival, is Inspire Day. And our volunteers are a big part of that heart.
One of the groups that volunteers for you are drivers, because you have to get people, artists, back and forth to the airport and into different venues and such.
Yes, we do. And our celebrities and our VIPs and our, we have our transportation team that we put together, and we get a lot of volunteers for that. And we have our sponsor that donates the cars, and they do a great job of helping us out and being a part of our festival. And the drivers are a big, important part. And it's kind of a glamour position because they get to dress up nice and they could have a celebrity sit in their car. Right. And it's a great opportunity for them to be close to the artist and the filmmakers and VIPs that are part of our festival.
We hope you enjoyed these highlights from 2016. Please join us next time for more adventures in wine country.